And what I was hoping to do today was just have a general discussion about what that product is, how is that going to work, how is that going to impact us as designers, if it will, and then but do some open Q&A kind of a discussion around this. So I'm just gonna very quickly show you what it is, and then we can go from there. So I think at a very high level, if you think about it, it's a new personal computing handset or a headset, right? You're going to have an extended reality kind of an experience. And when I say extended, it could be virtual reality or augmented reality. Either ways, it's capable of working in both of those modes. And then the other aspect is, this is the one that is really, really interesting, is this sensors that are in the device. Okay, so you can interact with it using voice, and it also has speakers in it, so it can interact with you using sound. You can interact with it using gestures. Then the other aspect is something that you can interact with it spatially. And what does spatial interaction mean? So for example, you put your clock app on your desktop, on your table, okay? So every time you look back at the table, that clock app shows up. Okay, so technically what it is doing is it's creating a 360-degree environment based on landmarks within your room, okay, or within any space. Okay, and the other really interesting one is, this is probably one of the first times a major product has looked at eye tracking and creating an interaction with that. So there's that, depending on where you're looking at, which menu you're looking at, that particular component is going to expand, and you can then kind of engage with it. So that's a huge, huge change from the previous ones that I've seen. Now, let's look at how would you generate outputs? How does a system generate outputs? So again, you can basically get outputs through audio, video, haptics. Haptics is a sense of touch, vibrations, all that stuff. And you're probably going to get a lot of spatial feedback as well. So it is, related to certain spaces, certain locations. So that's where the feedback is. So I think one of the most biggest things that we have to be thinking about is, especially about spatial computing, is how do all of these sensors and how do all of these outputs play out when you are in a certain space? Okay. And how would you then give inputs to the person, and how do you get outputs? But again, you could argue that, there've been other applications that came out before, right? So they've been Google Glasses, Facebook came out with Meta, and, which was previously Oculus. And it's been like, companies have spent billions of dollars, or like, maybe not billions, but millions of dollars to do the same virtual reality headset, right? So why do you think this is going to succeed, or should this even succeed? So if you look at these, why do you think these guys didn't succeed, guys? Anybody? Go ahead, Bhaskar.
Use cases which they dealt with is very less. If it is Meta and all, it had some game inputs and controllers, hand controls. Whereas Google Glasses, it only had just viewing information. But whereas here it is like, whatever we actually do on our laptops or mobile phones, we could actually do all the stuff in this spatial area, what was showcased here.
Interesting. So you're saying there were very limited use cases on the other apps, whereas on the whereas on the Apple side, there's a lot of use cases.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. So Punish, you have a thought on this?
No, like actually I had a question in mind, like what Bhaskar has said. So basically what I felt is, AR VR is like generally for multimedia and the gaming side, like for entertainment and leisure side, it has more use cases and application as compared to the professional and business side. But it's still like all big companies are highly investing in this technology, like highly like advancing in this technology. So I was getting hard to understand why they're putting so much emphasis on this, like if it is not having that much business use cases?
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, I think the answer to that question will come if you think about, well, why did the other guys didn't succeed? So I will answer your question in hopefully another 5 minutes. But till then, think about why did these guys not succeed? I would agree with Bhaskar is like use cases are limited. So again, if you want to invest because this product is going to cost $3,500, if you're going to purchase something for $3,500, well, what are you going to do with it? Right? And that's a big question. The second one is privacy. If you think about Google Glasses in the past, there was a huge privacy backlash. So when people would, there was a term that was actually coined for that, because when Google Glasses was being tested, they would give out these glasses and a lot of people would wear these Google Glasses in public spaces. Right? And what they were called was called glass holes. It was a completely new term. These guys were called glass holes because they would be taking recording devices into public spaces and be recording everything. And so people felt that they were infringing on other people's privacies and they would get really mad and upset about it. Like if you were going for a dinner with your partner and suddenly somebody is wearing these Google glasses and sitting in the same place, you don't want that to happen. So there is this whole aspect of privacy being lost and people did not like it. The other one, which is a big, big issue, is comfort, right? Which is when you wear a device like this, it is very disorienting. People have experienced nausea. There've been other medical, people get sick by the time they wear it. And, there's this challenge with it. And last one, to a minor extent, has been cost in terms of why Google Glasses and, Oculus. Facebook, of course, was a classic case of there was no use case for it. They were just investing a lot, but there was no single use case for it. So these are all the core problems. So, but if we can go back to our presentation, we did a little exercise and said, well, how much do VR headsets cost or extended reality headsets cost in the market? So if we go on to slide number 3, here's the interesting one, right? When you look at it, the most expensive headset is the Valve Index one, which is about $1,400. That is the most expensive one in the market right now, at least, according to CNET. Now, the cheapest one is somewhere in the range of about $162, which is a Sony PlayStation VR kit, right? So when you think about it, this guy is basically coming in and saying he's taking the most expensive one and doubling the price or more than doubling the price and creating a completely new headset and saying it's going to cost $3,500. So, and the reason I'm asking this question is because should you even be worried as designers? Should you be even worried that there's going to be, or should you even be planning to prepare or learn or get into this space if it's not going to succeed? And so the question I'm trying to answer is what is the chance that this product is going to succeed? Okay. And what is the chance that this product will succeed big? Okay, that is a question, because if it becomes a big success, that is when you want to be thinking about a lot of these things. So the question that comes is, well, if all of these are built out in the range of $1,400, $162 to $1,400, and this product is selling for $3,500, well, what problem is Apple trying to solve? Which market is going to be getting most impacted by Apple? I just like you to think about it. Who is going to be affected the most?
I'm sorry, I was thinking about the positive sides. I think on the entertainment industry, people would be using it. And also I quite kind of see telemedicine kind of a thing. Somehow
Telemedicine, again, it seems to work generally with, with a camera, right? So why would you need something that engaged for telemedicine? Entertainment, I can see that, but Facebook tried entertainment and it kind of has been struggling with that. So, but there are interesting use cases on that. So I want you to think about it and give me a little bit more data around that. So go ahead, Punish.
For me, it's gaming industry, because even Sony has been trying multiple devices like PlayStation and even Microsoft Xboxes, but it is going to highly impact that, because this is an whole new experience for gaming industry that definitely Xbox and PlayStation will not able to provide.
So here's the problem, right? Here's what I'm struggling with. If it's going to be the gaming industry, okay, Apple does not own any gaming studios, right? Valve actually owns a gaming studio, isn't it? And you're going to have, what was the other one, which is Sony PlayStation owns its own gaming studio. So they would actually benefit more directly by creating this, right? Unless Apple decides it wants to open a gaming studio. So where is the money for Apple? Because, I mean, if I'm Valve, I would rather integrate directly with my own device, especially if a new device is coming in. I would compete with Apple because it's basically going to take my market.
Yeah, actually, like the companies are basically like for PUBG, it's Krafton. So Krafton doesn't own his device; it creates his game for different platforms, like Xbox compatible games they develop. Now PUBG will be available on Xbox, so they have to like they develop their game for that compatibility. But like if the market is going to now shift to AR, VR, so they will start developing the games for compatible with these devices. Like if EA Sports to start developing his game that is compatible to AR, VR, then the demand of Xbox and PlayStation will be less as compared to this demand of AR, VR headset. So
I would agree with it. But then if you think about the market pricing for those other devices, like, Sony is going $162. Right? Valve is going $1,400. So you're saying I'm going to be in the gaming device, but I'm going to charge $3,500. So it doesn't explain the use case. Like, if you are the user, even if you're a die-hard player, you could technically buy both of these devices and still make it cheaper than what Apple is going to sell it for you. Isn't it? So that is not the only use case. It's an important use case, but that is not the only use case. There's got to be some other use case. Go ahead, Chaitanya.
Hi, Prasad. From a commercial point of view, I think it will be a very good tool for promoting brands.
Okay, awesome. I like that. So I think definitely there is a e-commerce component to it where you can explore products in a lot more interactive manner as opposed to a flat website.
Yeah.
Right? There's also the other interesting thing, which is, very similar to what you said, is the panorama. If you look at the video, if you take a panorama photo on your camera, you can actually see it as a panorama when you're wearing the device.
Like in full wave, in full scale, you can see that, which occupies the entire room.
But still, what is the use case? So what I'm hearing is e-commerce is the use case potentially. What I'm also hearing, but then e-commerce is, it's a companies make money on it. Right? It's not Apple or you as a customer that is invested $3,500. I mean, how much are you willing to pay to be able to see the, your pictures in panorama?
Is the ecosystem play is what I think they are playing. Because if you look at the sequence of OS releases, what they have done, they have been concentrating on seamlessness of using all the Apple products in the ecosystem. Like you can copy something on iPhone and then paste it on your Mac, or you can paste something on your laptop and then use the same thing on your desktop too. Like if you are using the all Apple connected system, where the use case, what was there in the commercial is you could actually use your computing power and preview it, and you could do the same task using your laptop or something in this personal space. So they are trying to enlarge the canvas by, so let's say the use case is you are a professional editor. You have 3 or 4 monitors, you have to use it. And they have seamlessly made ecosystem connectivity between your iPhone, you take photos on them, you paste it in your Mac and you use it. Now you have an unlimited canvas to see all those things instead of investing on different screens. Like if you look at their screens, monitors also, they cost like very huge. So now if I only use one PC and then I use this, one laptop and with one high end PC what they are launching, like I think it is $6,999 or something. So if you have that thing, they don't need monitors right now. With this small spatial computing, that you can use those power of those computers, and then they can use only this canvas and get the done. So I think they're playing an ecosystem role of everything.
So again, the question that I'm trying to answer is, I understand the ecosystem, but why would you pay $3,500? But this has to give something unique that other products are not giving.
I think the
Correct?
comfort.
Comfort. Now, ironically, the early reviewers that basically got to play with this device said they experienced nausea. Most of them experienced nausea when they use this product. Right. So it's not comfort. So comfort, I think that's a technical problem that they will have to solve. But there is a bigger use case that they have. And what is interesting about it is this. So the question that I'm asking is, well, what is it replacing? Okay. The first thing, we just basically went to Amazon and said, okay, what would you get for $3,500? High-end OLED TVs, high-end home theaters, high-end gaming units. So we were seeing like, a 77-inch LG TV at 4K was going for about $3,500. Right. And so what these guys are doing is potentially, and it had almost about 2,000 reviews. So assuming that, 1 in 100 people put their reviews on Amazon, I would assume that Amazon sold about 200,000 units in the US alone. Okay. So that gives me a sense that there is potentially a market space for entertainment. But the core difference with this is, one, you can have as big of a screen as you want in as little of a space as you have. Okay. You could be staying in a really small house, but you could have a really big screen. But the negative on that is you do not have a shared experience. So generally, when you have a TV, 2 or 3 people are sitting together and watching the TV together, you have a shared experience. Whereas if you have your headset on and your friends have their headset on, you're not really sharing in that core experience. So there is a negative aspect in there, but it is allowing you to create a very immersive movie. And that in itself seems to be a very valid game. Okay. But there was something else that was very interesting. How many of you noticed in the video, they said you can have a little keyboard that you can type, a virtual keyboard. So you don't really have to buy a monitor. You don't have to buy a keyboard. So all your devices are now theoretically can be virtual, right? So you're talking about hardware devices, right? External cameras, monitors, keyboard, mice, all of these devices could also potentially be replaced in your ecosystem. Right. And in addition, the one thing that everybody's been talking about, the connected devices, what is the core of those connected devices? It's a computational device, right? It is your personal computer. So in a sense, it is your personal computer to go with a very immersive experience, right? So that is a huge shift. So you're saying, not only am I going to get, a 100-inch TV with super high clarity, I also do not need to buy any other pieces of hardware. And this can also become my computer. Okay. Now, when you think about that, your $3,500 seem reasonable. Now, if you look at also the way they pitched it, okay, that is also another interesting aspect. Okay. The way they pitched it was, they didn't pitch it as, hey, you can go out and you can be walking around with this headset. They pitched it as you would be sitting in your home and doing your office work, or you would be getting entertained. So there is that aspect of a home office, or it's a work office kind of a thing. So privacy issues do not exist anymore because you're not expected to wear this and walk around in the streets. You're basically either you're sitting in your office and you're using this device, or you are sitting at home and you're working or getting entertained. Okay, so it is an entertainment kind of an experience in the privacy of your home or your office. Okay, that is a huge deal, and there is a clear use case for that. So that is where their pitch comes in, is you're replacing all of these devices for a fraction of the cost, and you're able to do everything. So you really don't need your existing devices. And if you do want to work on other devices and you have files or whatever, you can always take them and move them across. So that actually tells me that there is a valuable, very interesting business case for these guys, right? So, I mean, if you just only look at the home computing industry, it's worth about $250 billion. If you look at the entertainment industry, it is again worth a few $100 billion. So there is a huge opportunity in this game. Now, And there is also a clear-cut audience that would potentially buy it. Again, for the early adapters, there's an audience that could potentially buy it. And so I see this as a easy uptake for them. So that said, what does it mean for us? So what I'm hearing is, from everything that I've done, extended reality is here to stay. It's not going away, right? Even if Apple fails, this concept is going to come back again. Okay. But however, what I do see is Apple has a focus on the use case. It has a clear use case. It has a clear privacy concern issues, and it has a clear value proposition that would appeal to users. So the question is, whether it succeeds or not, I think it has a good chance of success, but whether it succeeds or not, extended reality is here. However, what they have given us is a really good framework for how to start learning to design for these kinds of experiences. We think it's going to basically, this is one of the first ones where you can practically learn the implications of how to design for extended reality. And so there is a visual language that Apple has shared, and there's a lot of interesting, fun stuff that it has shared. And I think this is a worthwhile task to just get introduced and understand how it works. Now, how should you learn about this new domain? And I think this is something that, you could probably read up on all the documentation, this is how it works, but I would say don't do that, right? Think about the ecosystem play. So what I would ask you to do is think about what the iOS standards are and how they are being modified for that specific use case. Okay, so 80% of it technically is the same standards as everywhere else. 20% is different because it's spatial in nature. Okay, go ahead, Chaitanya. You have a point?
I have one question. I'm little confused when I saw that video. They were talking about how you can develop your mobile applications for that spatial interface. Spatial that thing. I'm little confused about that. So
okay,
I mean, whatever applications that are there on Apple Store, iStore, okay, the same applications can be beamed through this, right?
Correct.
So is there a specific way that has to be designed, or it will be automatically the way the responsive sites function, these apps also will function like that? I'm really confused when I saw that video.
So I have a suspicion that Apple will probably have some kind of a mode, just like you go from responsive to desktop mode. There will be some kind of a mode where it can take an existing experience that has not been coded for, a spatial experience to translate into that. Okay, so just like you have native apps and then you have a responsive, mode, you will probably have both of those modes within the spatial OS as well.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Yeah. So because the way they've explained some of these concepts are very, very interesting. So what they say is, I don't know, do we have the video that we're talking about, Hoy, where we show how the pop-ups work? Yes. There's a very interesting snippet for about 10 seconds. They talk about it, and within that 10 seconds, you can understand how they're thinking about it.
On this platform, many viewers can expand outside the window. They appear centered by default, ensuring that the content always appears right where the user is looking.
So could you pause this and go back like a couple of seconds? So this is interesting. So what they've done is, just like you have a device, they've created a opacity, okay, a transparency in the back. That is your device limits. Okay, could you go back? Okay, yeah, this is fine. So that is your view space. Okay. The interesting differences are that when you come here and you click on some element, obviously your pop-up cannot go out of your view space. Okay. But there, what they've done is they've made it pop outside of the view space. Okay. So these are small changes. There's a like shadow effect, right? So there's a shadow effect, there's textures, there's the transparency. Those are all things that they've designed that are minor variations of this. So what they're trying to do is create the same physical device in your virtual environment. Yes. So that is the other aspect, which is what Charu is saying. So there is the anchoring to the real space, not anchoring to the virtual space. So Yeah, go ahead and play this. I think that's fine. We can look at the
Menus align
the-
to the leading edge
yeah.
of the invoking button, and the button dims as the menu opens. Popovers point to the invoking element, and the navbar becomes inactive. On this platform, menus and popovers can expand outside the window. They appear centered by default, ensuring that the content always appears right where the user is looking.
Okay,
One
let's
thing to
pause it.
always keep in mind is to
So one of the things that is really important here is this. The way they have designed this new virtual experience is they've taken existing experiences and they have tried to translate it. Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, when I look at it, I don't think it's very complex. Okay. Because 80% of this experience is exactly the same as what the iOS standards would say for a desktop device. Okay. However, the 20% is these small changes. Okay, yeah, the popover can actually move outside of your transparency. Or the other thing, like Charu was saying, okay, you can anchor your windows to landmarks in your real estate, in your real space, in your real world. Okay. So those are the different elements. So the way I would actually suggest is if you want to kind of just get comfortable with it, the first step is get really familiar with the iOS standards. Okay. And then the next step is just look at how are these standards, these virtual device standards, different from the iOS standards. Only look at the differences. You don't need to look at everything else. Okay. So when you look at the differences, what you will realize is, you don't have to learn a lot. It's just that 20% that you have to look at. And so that's what we realized as we were starting to explore. There's nothing new in the game. I mean, there is some stuff new, which is the spatial aspect. And of course, as you play around with a little bit more, then you start realizing, hey, how do I use eye tracking? Because that's the other aspect. So the way they use eye tracking is wherever you're looking, that aspect expands. Okay. So now that is another interesting aspect. So there are these functionalities that are available. So that is the second thing that you need to learn is given these additional functionalities with eye tracking or with the spatial aspect of a certain application, how do you then present different experience to users? Okay, that is the game. So designing in terms of the UI is not the more difficult part. But understanding how these new engagement models will impact your experience is where you need to be thinking about. Does everybody understand this difference? It's very subtle, but it's important. Okay. So this is where we need to be thinking about the multimodality, right? The voice, gesture, eye tracking. We are also thinking about the true depth cameras, right? The illuminators, all of these things. We need to think about how do all of these devices and the multimodal nature of engagement enrich your experience more. Okay. So for example, I can say in a desktop application, okay, you are basically, you can see 40 pictures. Okay. And you really don't know. What if in a virtual reality thing, you're basically looking at 10 pictures and through eye tracking, you have looked at 5 pictures more than the remaining. Let's say there are 10 pictures, you have looked at 5 more than the other 5, right? So you prefer 5 pictures. Can you actually use artificial intelligence to say, give me more pictures like these 5? Okay, that's a whole different way of designing the experience because in a desktop, you do not have that data. Okay, so that is where the spatial interaction as well as the data that you're getting from eye tracking, gestures, and voice can actually integrate to create a much more richer experience. Okay, any questions or thoughts at this point, guys? Cool. Let's go on to the next slide. All right. So I would just say we will share all of these links. Just look at these links, understand them. Don't worry about the UI. Okay, the UI is just 20% more than what is currently there. Okay, really what I want you to think about is if I had all this new data that was coming, how will I redesign, say, Google Photos, right? Or Apple Photos. If I had all this new data, how would I redesign Maps? Okay, so that will fundamentally change the way you're thinking about this application. And that is the challenge that I want to give to you guys. Okay? If you were, let's say, if you were redesigning, let's say, Google Maps or, Apple Maps, okay, and in a virtual environment, how would you do it? What new functionality would we be able to incorporate into Apple Maps that was not there before? Okay, and that would be the challenge. If you're interested in kind of taking that on, reach out to Hoy. Go ahead, Bhaskar.
I'm not sure. Like I was thinking about Google I/O. What was there new? When we look at Google Maps, they have actually introduced this immersive view where we could see the current weather conditions and see what the roads look like and experience it even in the phone when it was there.
Right.
But now if we would translate that thing, it would be much more immersive in this thing. So is there any like gray area where they both are already collaborating? Maybe Google can come up with their own thing.
So I would suspect Google is also going to get into the space.
Yeah.
Okay. They did Google Glasses. There was a huge privacy backlash. What they did was they didn't kill the project. They brought it back and they started focusing on specific specialization like surgery, doctors and all that, right? So if you're wearing Google Glasses, it can tell you like you put 4 cotton swabs here, you put a forceps here. So it'll actually map all that for you. And so when you're taking it out, you can get it out or whatever. So they're doing some really interesting experiments with that. But I would suspect that Google has not given up on it. No company has basically, every company, I should say, has a plan for extended reality.
Yeah, I think even that Google Maps experience would be working more better on this Apple Vision Pro.
Correct. Exactly. And I think the question that we should be asking is, what is the need? So this is where we need to think about, right? What is the need, the user need? And what is the opportunity that you can create for that user need using this new data that you're getting at it? One thing I would say is I think Hoy got a question, which is like, what kind of opportunities will this open? And I think the simple answer to that is in the next 1 year, probably not many, because most of the opportunities that will be open right now in this space are probably going to be what you'd call the superstar designers. They would be the ones that would be taking the first stab at it. However, I would say, 3 to 5 years down the line, I would see this as becoming more of a routine experience, right? How do you merge sound with spatial experiences? And again, that's something that, I did not talk about, right? How do you engage eye tracking with a certain experience, but how do you merge sound with a certain experience? How do you merge vibrations or haptic feedback with a certain experience? So there's a lot of different kinds of experiences, different kinds of sensors and data that are coming together. And I would say 3 to 5 years is when this is actually going to be moving forward in a really, really big manner, and these kinds of opportunities become more open to everybody. But that is what you need to be thinking about. And I would suspect that the number of people at that time, the 3 to 5 years, is not going to be a lot. So it's going to be one of those niche spaces where you get, a significant amount of, compensation, but not a lot of people will be able to do that kind of work. So ideally, people who have experience with interior design, okay, or who have experience, again, architects come back as my favorite design type of designers, because, people who think spatially, right? Those are the kinds of folks that would find it very easy to transition into this kind of role. So I would just encourage you, like, wherever you are, just keep it at the back of your mind. How would I design this if I was designing something spatially? And I think you will have some really interesting ideas. Okay, cool. So guys, if you can turn on your camera so we can just see each other and say goodbye, I think we can call this a day. All right, guys, thank you very much. This is extended reality is something that we will continue to be exploring over the next couple of months to understand exactly what it means for us, how we have to design, how we have to be thinking and stuff like that. And we will keep you in the loop as and when we learn something interesting and new. But for now, I would just say focus on the experiences. That is where the big game is.